And you have to have this because it's not coming up. See, it's going round and round. It'll come up in a minute. So we have to be able to see this so we can see this chat. Okay. And then make sure volume. I don't know whether we need the volume up. And then if people say something which they want to hear, then we can. That's when we read the chat. How did you do that? He's okay.
No, we'll, yes.
Okay.
We'll go over this again. This is Lisa. And Nani is, you know, she lives here.
Oh, okay. I'm Lisa.
Kate.
I'm Lisa.
Rama Kate. Lisa is the person behind Spirit Path now.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. That's what I'm selling.
She's,
I said I'm Harinder's friend when I came in.
Yes,
It
you are.
It was a possibility that you were selling something. I said,
Representing a church.
we're representing a church, yeah.
people usually just walk in.
And this
Oh,
is
I'm
a
so
lovely,
sorry.
lovely space. It's what?
Excuse me, I don't like trip is good.
Yes. Yes, it's very good.
I'm going to pull out from the wall of this book here. Sometimes one
Just right here too.
pull out this way.
Oh, you keep going. You can go in. It's okay.
Is that good?
I can, yeah.
I saw it disappear. It's not actually look up anymore. Are you going to
I'll have to do response again. Yes, I can do that.
Yeah, however you feel comfortable. I'll go see if we have extra text.
There's one on the thing to go away too, where that one went on the corner, so I can go back there and go.
Oh, this one needs to go back, if you're saying, Melanie? This one needs to go back. Oh,
Thank you. I made it look easy.
You did.
That's Ishmael's blessings.
The appearance of it all being just so fair and easy and ready to go is sometimes belied in the reality of a moment or two from now.
It's the behind the scenes setup that intimidates me.
You know, it's the next moment.
And I just had tea with Harinder and got her all technologied out about hosting events on Spirit Path now. So her brain is probably technology swimming at this point.
Oh, that's good. It should be.
Deeply safe.
Yeah.
Limber for this one.
this is one of the ongoing texts, and this is where we are.
Am I supposed to be standing at this point?
Yeah, why don't we work for songs as we read? This time. And then she'll pass from here, you know. Oh.
You are back. You're on the same schedule? No?
For a while.
Oh, that's why. That's very, very nice. I was just telling Shivani the other day that Kate and I are on very different schedules. Very nice. I didn't have time to check where we stopped. Can someone please help me?
3:15.
Oh, I'm really ahead. Okay. Only 15?
Yes, ma'am.
Purusha. Oh, okay. We finished that one. Okay. All right. Not that ahead. Little bit there. Okay. Wonderful.
Yes.
Very, very nice. Dottie is still in Sweden.
I believe that is
Mm.
Sweden.
Some you are not well still.
I don't know. I saw her earlier. She didn't.
Yeah. Okay. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 पुरुष एवेदगं सर्वं यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यं उतामृतत्वस्येषानः वेरी गुड यदन्नेनातिरोहति yeah we have finished this correct yeah
I think so.
yeah just to recap since it has been a while so that I can remind myself what that means you know in these two verses this one and 3:14 the immanent and the transcendental nature or the definition of Bhagavan is given. You know, immanent means that which obtains in the universe as the universe. So, in other words, everything that we see, you know, and everything that I can interact with is Bhagavan. Is also Bhagavan. It's everything is sacred, everything is Bhagavan, everything is Ishvara, you know, from starting with a flower and rock, birds, sky, four-footed, you know, and then two-footed, also birds, but they are we've already talked about them as flying in the sky, and then the human being. So the same Atma here called Purusha, in the form of Bhagavan, in the form of that sentience, that limitless knowledge, you know, sleeps inside a rock and then, you know, flies as a bird, flies in a bird, walks through the body of a sheep, a goat, anything, you know, yeah, and thinks in the human being because that's the only thing that's different. Yeah, sleeps in a rock, flies as the bird, you know, walks as the horse, the goat, the sheep, the llama. In Eugene you have to mention llama. And then thinks in the human being. When the human being thinks, it is this Purusha, yeah, because without its presence nothing can, you know, nothing can exist, nothing, there is no sentience without its presence. And this Purusha alone here is what is called the immanent form of the Purusha, because it is there in everything that you touch and in everything that touches you. That is the whole thing, you know. Whatever you touch has the presence of God, Ishvara, and whatever touches you also has the presence of Ishvara. But lest we are to conclude that this is the extent of Ishvara, is the manifest universe, then there is a caveat. That's why we have these two verses that are done side by side, is that, you know, this verse says, yes, it is true that everything that is here is nothing but Ishvara, the Purusha. But this, what is the Purusha, if you ask, you cannot say, then it will become a kind of a, what is that, roundabout reasoning. Jagat is Purusha, Purusha is Jagat. This is the problem, you see. And this is actually a problem for a number of people who, in various theologies, who kind of, fight. There is a kind of an interesting tension. How to present this, God without sounding odd, This is the whole problem in many theologies. So therefore they get the transcendental aspect by saying, Bhagavan, made the universe and then flew off to some place called heaven and is sitting there away from the universe. How is that possible, And then, this has so many fallacies. That's why I'm not even going to go into it. I'm just going to mention it. And whereas, then for the immanent aspect, they do try in the Christian theology to bring in the ghost. What is that called?
Holy Spirit.
The Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is the immanent form of Bhagavan in their view, because it is there pervading the universe. Whereas Bhagavan, the actual embodied Bhagavan, the disembodied one is here in the form of the ghost, and the embodied one is elsewhere, away from, oneself. And so this does not solve the problem of human alienation. It does not solve the problem at all, because one is still searching, yearning to be one with the whole, and one is, left with the ghost. And, no matter how holy, this is the thing. So therefore, even in other traditions, they try to grapple with this very same thing. But here in our tradition, it states very clearly that all this is Bhagavan, that Bhagavan is none of this. How is that possible? That is possible because we say that the presence and the knowledge is lent to various upadhis. Upadhis means what? The various bodies and minds, body-mind complexes in the form of, this presence. So anything that has presence has the presence of Bhagavan, Ishvara, God, because there is no other presence. That is why everything that is present has the presence of Bhagavan, because there is no other presence than Bhagavan. That presence is called Bhagavan. It's also called you when you say I am. That presence, that awareness, and which happens to be in the form of all knowledge. In fact, if you look at the universe, you just see knowledge. You don't see anything else. It's just knowledge, 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 knowledge all the way. Even starting with this flower, we take this flower. Flower is. When you say is, you're cognizing Ishvara. Why? Because the isness does not belong to the flower. Who does it belong to? Ishvara. Or you can say it belongs to me. Same thing. So I have lent the flower my presence. Therefore it is showing off. See how big and beautiful I am. See how nice I am. And what a lovely color I am. All this showing off is because of the presence. And when you analyze the presence, what is this presence? This presence is just knowledge. Flower is, when I say, what I mean to say is flower knowledge is. And it is limitless knowledge that has gone into just this flower, which defies all the scientists. Every scientific, discovery is, the scientists are jubilant when they discover something. But that discovery is only, as Swamiji says, up to the next question. Yeah, he says. And he shows it like this. Okay, what is this? Flower. Everyone knows. And what is the name? Everybody will know. It is this Dahlia or something. Yeah, Dahlia, or it may be from the mum family, Why is it called mum and not dad? I don't know. I don't know. See, already the don't know is starting. Why is this color and not yellow? I don't know. Why is it so big, whereas the another flower born on the same stem is this tiny little, looks like a small fry? I don't know. Why does this have fragrance? Well, that's because some complicated thing we can say. But why does that happen to only this flower and not to something else? Like the camellia, which is also blooming around this time. You can inhale the whole thing, but you will not smell anything. Why? You know, and if you're American, you will go like this, right? I don't know, and I don't care to find out either. That's what it means. It's a teenage sign language. Starts in teenage, and then one, just adapts it as a form of life. So why is it like this? I don't know. So this knowledge, this shows. Each time I say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Each time I say that, I'm affirming the limitless knowledge that is in the form of this flower. That shines means becomes evident to me in the form of this flower, in the shape of this flower. So too this Purusha is like that. The whole universe is populated by the presence of the Purusha. But when you look at the Purusha himself, herself, there is no him or her at this level. Just the presence, which a genderless presence. And so when you look at the Purusha, atirohati, annena atirohati. Atirohati means exists beyond, crosses, transcends. Transcends what? Annam. Annam here means food, but actually food means what? Anything that you consume. Oh, does it include potato chips? No, we are not talking of that kind of food. Like even the flower. Oh, the edible flowers? No, not consumed literally. Anything that you can objectify, because there are various forms of bhogas, not just from the standpoint of, this food. We have to get out of this food thing. Yeah. So anything that you intake, that's a better way of thinking. Intake through what? The various gateways called the sense organs, the indriyas. So how many gateways? 5 gateways for intaking and enjoying these many ways of just so many things. So it's all annam, annam, annam. Adyate iti annam. This definition of annam also is given in Taittiriya Upanishad. Adyate iti annam, atti iti annam means first it is a very innocent object or a series of objects. Adyate, I eat this, I consume this. Who is important here? Yeah, I am in charge. What are you? You are just an object. You are just here for my entertainment. I consume you. And then what happens? I got addicted. Because first I thought it's a small little dalliance and I can just go and then come out. What is this? How can this small little ubiquitous thing have any power over me? So I go in with that aplomb and this ego, the ahankara, that I can just step in and step out. But what happens? There is one plant called Venus flytrap. Yes. Actually its name is Venus. What it does is traps flies. Yeah. It's got some kind of a unctuous liquid. It's got a little, sac, that's its stomach. And then it's got a little liquid, I suppose that's its hydrochloric acid. And then the unsuspecting, six-ped, octoped, whatever it is, spider, fly, bee, whatever it is, some curious flying insect. And also it gives out some kind of a, aroma to trap all these bees, wasps, everything, spiders. So they all go in thinking, Adyate, we are going to have a little, nice, honey cocktail. That's what they are going to think. Some nectar we are going to drink and come out. And then what? Ram Nam Satya Hai. This is what you say at the funeral. So, this is a chant. As the dirge is going, you keep chanting that. Why? Because invariably Even though it has 8 legs, the spider slips. With all the legs, it slips. Not even one leg is out of the sides of the little bowl called the to fly trap. It goes in, and then it is immediately in full view of all the scientists digested. And then even the flying insects, the wings get stuck because it's got that sticky thing. So even though they have legs and wings, they are not able to come out. And so first, same thing with all the jivas. The jagat gets addictive. First, annam means adyate. Adyate means sarvani bhutani adyate, adyante. All of them eat, all of them eat. And then what happens in the process of eating, this annam, these objects that delight one, start to eat you. Adyate ticha sarvani tasmat tadannamuchyata iti. That's why it is called annam. First you think you are eating, and then what happens? It starts to eat into you. Any amusement, any pastime, any ingesting, anything starts to eat you from within. Even if you take just on the level of food, then what happens? You say, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat gluten, starting age 10. You can't eat gluten, you can't eat this, you can't eat that. And then everyone becomes a fresharian. That's all. That's all is safe, Yeah. Even that's not safe. I know one person who said, I just came back from the bar. I said, you go to bars? I didn't think that you go to bars. No, oxygen bar. There is one oxygen bar in Los Angeles. Yeah, I'm sure it's in other places also, but this particular one, I know the person who went to Los Angeles and some kind of breathing difficulty, not exactly COPD, but something like that. Some kind of a terrible breathing difficulty, and of course the air quality in Los Angeles is not nice, and not as bad as New Delhi, but getting there. And so the doctor advised him to go sit in the oxygen bar, where you pay $15 an hour just to get fresh air. So this is what the objects make a mincemeat of us, because first we think we are there and we are just there to just dally with these things, and then we can come out. But really speaking, what happens? Venus trap, Yeah. And so like this, adyate atticha bhutani tasmat tad annam uchyate iti. That is why it is called annam. And here the Purusha is told that the Purusha annena atirohati, means the Purusha, Ishvara here, this presence does not get entangled in its own creation. Yeah. Cannot, because otherwise it cannot be called limitless. It cannot be called the truth of you. So it touches the creation, more aptly called manifestation. It touches everything that it has quote unquote manifested, created, with its presence, with its knowledge, sentience, and then what? It is also uniquely itself without turning into the very thing or becoming entangled in that very thing. Annena atirohati. Annena vartate atirohati cha. So it is in the form of all objects, but it is never objectified itself. It is the very truth, the content of the subject. Very nice. Yeah, so beautiful. So this is the transcendental form of the Purusha. First you count all the hands and legs, Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, 1,000 hands, 1,000 legs, 1,000 eyes, all 1,000 feet. But then it is uniquely itself. So everything that is here has the presence of Bhagavan. But Bhagavan is what we can, I suppose, use the word beyond all the manifestations. In the form of that Satchidananda, existence, which is all knowledge and limitlessly existent, limitlessly all knowing. You know, this is what Bhagavan is. So, yad annena atirohati. So, this is something we have to know. Why do we have to know this? You know, Uta also, Uta here means in fact, indeed. Uta amritatvasya ishanaha, the Lord of Moksha. Here, Ishvara is presented as the Lord of your freedom. That freedom from the notion of limitation and the notion of bondage. What bondage? We just talked about this bondage, being bound by every object in the universe. Uta amritatvasya api ishanaha. Ishanaha, the overlord of moksha. So the Lord that bestows moksha. How does Bhagavan bestow moksha? You know, as you. You know, Swatma Prakashena. When you understand the truth of your own presence as crossing the limits of this body, mind, sense complex, as extending itself to everything that you encounter, where all the subjects are able to resolve into you, all the objects resolve into you, the subject, which is irresolute, it cannot resolve into anything. And so when you are able to see this, that means you have been blessed by the Lord of Moksha. The Lord of Moksha is really yourself. Yeah, it is yourself alone that has had a, cognitive shift in this vision. And what brings about the cognitive shift? To see everything not only as one, but to see yourself as the truth of everything. And to see these limitations as but notions of being, notions as the consequent to not understanding the truth of yourself. These notions come with self-ignorance. Not just self-ignorance. Dog also is ignorant. Cat is ignorant. So what is the difference between doggy ignorance and human ignorance? What is the difference?
It doesn't have a complex center.
It doesn't have a complex centered on the eye. The dog, sometimes you see this in dog show. Just go to one dog show. All the owners are stressed out. The dogs are fine. And they keep on, one time I saw this on television. They kept combing this poor dog. I thought all the hair is going to fall off before it's turned into that little, in this little ring it has to walk. And the poor thing, they made it walk on two legs and, going like this and then all these things. And there were all these various pedigrees. And then some of the dogs got certificates. And if you could give the certificate to the dog, it's going to assimilate it. Yeah. The owner will never even show the dog the certificate. That all degrees and pedigrees are for the owner. It's not for the dog. If the dog had a complex centered on itself, no poodle would leave the house, I tell you. Yeah. No. It would say, what have you done to me? Am I a tree or you have pruned me? I'm not coming out like this. You go for a walk. So the poor poodle is out on the street. All varieties of them, little bows over here and, all kinds of things and little foof, pom-poms, all over that's what they're called, right? Pom-poms. Yeah, all over the place. And still very nonchalantly they are going for a walk. This shows there is no complex centered on the eye. That is the proof. If you ever want proof. Yeah, that is the proof. So now, if you had a haircut like that, would you go out? Never. Not in 100 years. You would not be seen even alive, you would just pretend you are not anywhere, you are non-existent, you would pretend. So here is the complex centered on the I, because it's almost like Mother Nature, Prakriti, when she made the human, body, mind, sense complex, gave complete freedom in terms of self-awareness, but also the blessing of this complete freedom, that free consciousness, comes with a price, free enough to judge myself. Alas. This is the sad, sad thing, correct? So here, this judgment is lifted because the same Ishvara in the transcendental form blesses you with moksha. How? Because the same Ishvara in the transcendental form is all knowledge, that which is a presence, which is all knowledge. And what are you? I am also the presence which is all knowledge. No, but I don't have all knowledge. I don't know Chinese. I don't know Greek. I don't know Russian. I don't know German. How can you say I'm all knowledge? Well, you know everything that you know. Yes? Yes? Yeah. And you know all the things you don't know. Correct? Yeah. That is all. What is all? What I know plus what I don't know is equal to all. So this is all. I know what I know. I don't know, I know what I don't know. And even if I don't know every discrete thing, that I don't know, but I still know that there are many things I don't know. Therefore, it is all knowledge. So the Ishvara which is in the form of the Jagat is also a blessing, because everything, it is right there, it is to be understood as Ishvara. So whatever you interact with is Ishvara. Everything that walks is Ishvara, everything that talks is Ishvara. But in addition to this immanent form, what blesses is that Bhagavan who is the Lord of Moksha. And what do you mean by the Lord of Moksha? The one whose knowledge has the key to drop the notions of oneself being finite and all these judgments. So that knowledge is what? Self-knowledge. Because that presence is nothing but yourself. Therefore, the Lord of Moksha. And also, because of this Bhagavan's blessings alone, one comes into the teaching situation. One gets the teacher, one studies. It's all because of this Bhagavan. So, Uta Amritatvasya api. Api here is for emphasis. Uta means what more? What more glories can I talk about this Purusha? Amritatvasya. Amritatva is here moksha, the Lord of immortality. Because all time and space is revealed to be just a spoof. Time consciousness is. So which is the is that is limitless. Time is, it has a presence, but time becomes evident when I say time consciousness is. So I am conscious of time. So my presence is making time evident to me. So that is the final say. Even though one is under the tyranny of time, always everybody is saying, I don't have time, I don't have time, I don't have time, oh my God, I don't have time, what's going to happen, I don't have time. But time is means time consciousness is. Time knowledge is. I am witnessing the time. So timelessness is the nature of the Purusha, is the nature of Bhagavan, is my own nature. Knowing this Bhagavan, I come to know myself as that timelessness alone, that limitless, timeless Sat existence is myself alone. And what kind of an existence? A conscious, sentient existence, which is all knowledge. This is what is the blessing of knowing the transcendental aspect or the transcendental definition. Both the definitions are, incomplete without the other. Both have to be seen together, because we cannot bypass the universe. Sometimes people say, I want only the transcendental one. I don't want to deal with the universe. it has given me lot of grief. That itself shows that there are certain things to resolve, right? Yeah. And sometimes people say, I don't want the transcendental one, I'm happy with everything right here, right now. And then I'm happily going with the wrong conclusion. What is that? Ishvara has become the Jagat. No. Ishvara has not become the universe, neither has the gold become the ornament. When the gold is made into an ornament, you cannot say gold has become the ornament. Gold is gold, it is manifest in the form of the ornament. The weight of the ornament is the weight of gold, the color of the ornament is the shine of gold. It's gold, always. And those people who tell you, put all your gold in an envelope and send it to us and you'll receive money in the mail, they actually tell you that. No Indian will do that. Yeah. Indians love their gold, and they don't deal with that 14 carat and all those things. They don't consider gold. 22 carat. In fact, they would like 24, but you cannot. Gold is not malleable. You cannot make it into anything. It's too soft. You have to add a little alloy in terms of silver, copper, something to make it moldable. Otherwise, it will not stay. So here is the person who says, we'll send you a free envelope in the mail, and you must have lot of gold that you're not using. Put it all into the envelope, send it to us, and suddenly you will get some money. And what do? They are not looking at the ornament. These people who are going to supposedly send you the money, what are they looking at? They are looking at only gold. They are not looking at the form. They have transcended the form. So here also the shine of this Purusha, which is my own self-shining presence, which is beyond time, when I know, then what happens? I have been blessed by the Lord of Moksha. So both these things are important. I cannot bypass the Jagat because I am in a manifest universe, and from the standpoint of the body-mind-sense complex, I have certain limitations. How do I transcend the limitations? I don't need to have an out-of-body experience. I don't have to jump out of the body. Correct? Thank God, because I can't. Yeah. Even though the body is a suit, it's a body suit. We just don't know where the zipper is located. Is it located here? Is it located somewhere in the back of like those robots? They just take out the battery and it goes like that. Is it located here? Or maybe it is cleverly here somewhere, somewhere there must be a zipper or a little combination lock which allows you to jump out of the body suit. You do jump out eventually, but it is not at your will. Somebody operates the zipper. It's not you. Correct? Yeah. So therefore, that operator I have to know. Because from the standpoint of the body-mind-sense complex, there is an operator, there is a niyanta operator, controller, there is some I am subject from the standpoint of the body-mind-sense complex to certain laws. I am the recipient of the laws. I am I'm being kind of ground under the laws. I am in someone's jurisdiction, correct? I better know that someone. And that is why, Vedanta doesn't work without Ishvara. Yeah, this is the problem. This is why it doesn't work. So therefore, I have to, I cannot bypass the universe, as well as the maker of the universe, as well as all the manifest laws. So I have to see that, that aspect or that definition of Ishvara as having its presence everywhere. And I have to come to a place of acceptance and surrender of what is. This is the only way to shake off the subjectivity from my eyes and to be able to see the world for what it is. When a dog goes in the river and comes out, everybody runs away. Why? It's going to go like this. Yeah. Everyone, no matter how much you love the dog, you don't want to be near it at that time. Yeah. So like this, I have to shake off the subjectivity. So I have to see that everything that is here, that what I am submerged in, which is this whole, sea of name and form, or rather a river, a flowing river of names and forms. Then I come out of this river and I have to also give myself a good shake, because I take the names and forms to be real and discrete and separate from me. And because I feel they are separate from me, what happens? I grieve. Yes. I keep grieving incessantly because of this separation. So when I shake off the subjectivity like a dog coming out of the river, then what happens? I see this whole universe having the stamp of Bhagavan. Everywhere there is Bhagavan. So in my awareness that alienation is gone, then I become ready emotionally to see the transcendental aspect of this very Bhagavan, which is none other than me. So till then I have to make peace with what there is, and this mantra talks about it. Amritatvasyapi ishanah yadannena atirohati. Yadannena atirohati. Yeah, and then the next 2-3 verses are from the Bhagavad Gita. And they elucidate in greater detail. What do they elucidate? This theme that has been put forth by the Purusha Sukta. Verses 14 and 15 are further taken in detail in 16 and 17. Sarvatah panipadam tat
Sarvatah panipadam tat
Sarvatokshishiro mukham
Sarvatokshishiro mukham
Sarvatah shrutimaloke
Sarvatah shrutimaloke
Sarvamavritya tishtati
Sarvamavritya tishtati
Sarvendriya gunabhasam
Sarvendriya gunabhasam
Sarvendriya vivarjitam
Sarvendriya vivarjitam
Sarvasya prabhumishanam
Sarvasya prabhumishanam
Sarvasya sharanam suhrit.
Sarvasya sharanam suhrit.
Yeah, this last line is different in the Bhagavad Gita. So when I say these are from the Bhagavad Gita, what I mean is they have been taken from here into the Bhagavad Gita. We just know them, we recognize these verses in the Bhagavad Gita. Because this is the primary source. The Bhagavad Gita becomes the secondary source. So these 2 verses in some form or the other occur in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. In the 13th chapter, Arjuna asks a question. Purusham Prakritim, what is Purusha? He asks. What is Prakriti? What is nature? What is Bhagavan? What is Jnanam? What is knowledge? What is Jneyam? What is to be known, to have this knowledge? He asks a list of questions in one verse. And the rest of this is an elucidation of this first verse where he asks all these questions in the 13th chapter. And the 13th chapter is wonderful because it gives this particular vision of how the same presence unfolds itself endlessly in everything that has name and form without being touched by those names and forms. And if I am that presence, then how come I am touched by all the names and forms and this one isn't? Not fair. So this is yeah, how come I get entangled with all the names and forms? If I am that presence, I should also just glide over the universe like they do in ice hockey. They do all these pirouettes, and then they fly and they come down, and then they go back and forth. They don't walk, they glide on this ice rink. So I should also, in relation to all the names and forms, starting with this body, this name and form, I should just be gliding with just a little touching here and touching there. Rest of the time I should just be gliding, pirouetting, jumping up, coming down effortlessly. But what has happened? I feel like the whole ice avalanche is on top of me, and I have no idea how to walk in these pointy skate shoes, you know. Certainly I'm not pirouetting. Certainly this is the most graceless, you know, ice skating or hockey playing or whatever it is. Most gracelessly I am playing this game, and each time I get stuck with something or the other. Sometimes I want to take the hockey puck and want to take the hockey stick and go home because I don't want to play at all. I'm you know, what is that called? I'm rebellious. And sometimes I want to change the rules of the game because I feel I should be able to. Then no one plays. Then I get sad and mad because the other people have left now. And then still there is so much homework at any given time. I just feel I'm constantly behind in life. And I'm walking all over it completely gracelessly. Whereas this Bhagavan, which I am supposed to be, has touched this universe with a presence, remains uniquely himself, herself. And then I am supposed to be this Bhagavan. How is this possible? In fact, this is what is Arjuna's question. And Arjuna's question is answered, you know, by, you know, first Bhagavan Krishna here says that to understand this, you have to have some qualifications. And he completely discusses those qualifications. Then after that, assuming that the discussion of the qualifications is enough because one has now gotten them, Bhagavan Krishna goes further deeper into this whole dance of the Purusha. How the Purusha is one with everything, has populated the entire universe with its presence and with all knowledge and limitlessly so, and does not become caught by its own creation. Whereas I, the human being, gets completely caught in my own creation. What do I create? Confusion. And then I get caught in the confusion. That's all I can create really. So why and how this is different at the level of Bhagavan, we get to see in the next two, in the two verses that we just chanted. Let us look at the meaning and then we'll go further from there. Sarvataha panipadam tat. So tat, that presence exists. How does it exist? Sarvataha, you know, everywhere. Everywhere what? Everywhere it exists in the form of hands and feet. This is very interesting. So whatever has hands, you see the hand of Bhagavan in that. Whatever has feet, you also see, don't say the feet, you see, unless your spelling is F-E-A-T, then you can say everything that has feet, you see the feet of Bhagavan, F-E-A-T, you know. Or you say, in everything that has feet, there is the hand of Bhagavan. In everything that has hands, there is the hand of Bhagavan, you know. So this is what it is. So sarvataha, sarvataha, this is a suffix called tasil, you know. Sarva plus tasihi, sarvataha. You know, tasihi becomes tas and tas becomes taha, sarvataha. And it is used in the sense of, you know, sometimes it is used in the sense of the fifth case, but here it is more used in the sense of seventh, sometimes seventh, but here it is used in the sense of, you know, without a residue, absolutely everywhere. Sarvataha means sarvataha, more swarthe, in its own sense. So, you know, so in its own sense, meaning everywhere without a residue, wherever, you know, No, Saptamyas Tral, Panchamyas Tasil. Tral, Sarvatra, seventh case. This is fifth case. Yeah, this is fifth case. Panchamyas Tasil. Panchamyas Tasihi. Yeah. Yeah, so this is fifth case, but here it doesn't even make sense to have fifth case. It just means everywhere without a residue. Sarvataha, on all sides, from here to there, from everywhere, whichever, however you measure this everywhere. So whatever has the ability to move, karmendriyas here, organs of action. So whatever has the ability to move has the presence of this Bhagavan. So in fact, all movement is this Bhagavan alone moving. And then Sarvataha Akshi. Akshini. Akshi is here what? Eyes. So everywhere there are eyes, that sight that takes place because there are eyes is because of this presence alone. If this presence is not there, the eye will not see. Sarvataha panipadam tat sarvataha akshi and shiras. So anything that thinks, even accidentally, if it has a thought, it is Bhagavan, it is the presence of Bhagavan. Sarvataha akshihi shiro mukham, anything that eats. Mukham here is mouth or face, both you can say. Anything that is face is Bhagavan. So, why all these things are mentioned? These things are the things we encounter as duality. Think about the centipede, so many feet. 100 means 50 on each side or 100 on each side. Who has counted, right? Yeah. So many things. The centipede should never need a podiatrist. Very difficult, yeah. Yeah. Should never need a podiatrist. Poor podiatrist, will close shop. Or it should have very good health insurance. It will never afford to, 100 feet, each foot something is wrong, finished. Or how to tell which foot, it's the 67th foot that is not working properly. So first 66 feet have to be examined. So wherever there are feet, it is the feet of Bhagavan. It is just Bhagavan. You see, now it is no longer my own small little organs of actions, correct? Because in every feet, are my hands and feet included or not?
Yes.
They have to be included. Otherwise, what's the point? So in every feet, my feet are also included. In every pair of hands, these pair of hands are also included. So now I am not stuck with my own finite idea of myself as a doer. This is what is dismissing here. Sarvatah panipadam tat sarvatokshishiro mukham. Yeah. So, no longer I am this small little encapsulated doer, doing all kinds of nonsensical things. And each time I do things, what do I have to do? I have to then become the experiencer of the results of action. Then when the results of action present themselves, they are not on a silver platter. Let's face it, In fact, they don't even come on a plate. They are thrown at me and I have to go like this. And then I don't like what I get thrown at. Correct? What is thrown at me. And so therefore what do I have to do? I have to change my doing so that the next time it at least comes on a copper plate, if not a silver plate. Correct? The next time also I botch up some doing, and last time it came and hit me from this side, this time it's coming from this side. So I have to just, this is what it is. This is what the alienated lifestyle is. And this is what is the lot of all the jivas. This is what it is. thinking oneself to be the doer and thinking oneself to be the consumer slash recipient of the results of action. So doer, experiencer, so one becomes like a bobblehead, constantly just changing these roles all the time. How confusing. But here, my doing is Ishvarized at the level of my organs of actions. It is totally Ishvarized. Ishvarized means it is made into a law that wherever there are hands, they will poke into other people's affairs. It's a law. Wherever there are feet, they will kick. It's a law. It's a possibility. It is totally taken out of this entity which has locked itself up as this individual body, mind, sense complex with its small little pains and sorrows and small little confusions and big samsaritvam, all these things. It is taken away from my hands, literally. In fact, what do you mean it's taken away from my hands? My hands have themselves been cut off and taken away, and because I have no longer my hands, I don't have anything that I can call mine in terms of my appendages, because now it belongs to Ishvara. It has become Ishvarized. So what does this Ishvarized means? No longer it is my small little problem of being a guilty doer. No longer is it my small little problem that each time I do, it just becomes entangled, like a kitten inside a ball of wool. You give the kitten a ball of wool, just go away for 10 minutes, come back. The two have become one, correct? They are indistinguishable. So too in my affairs, everything I'm entangled in. I'm not able to see see myself in and through the thick of everything that is attacking me, and I have to face. And so here I understand that my hands and legs are even not there. How will I get entangled without hands and legs? So the hands and legs have been Ishvarized in the sense that you are looking at the presence of all hands and all legs at once, and when you are able to do that, you are no longer looking at the individual karta, the doer. You are looking at a law, that wherever there are hands and legs, there will be quarrels. This is a law. There will be fisticuffs. Wherever there are hands and legs, there will be doing. Wherever there are hands and legs, there will be botched doings. Possibility is there. You see, now you are looking at it as a law. Wherever there are hands and legs, there may be even some nice doings. And sometimes the hands and legs don't function. That is also, even the disorder is part of the law. The disorder is subsumed within the order. But Ishvara transcends both the order and the disorder. We have to see this. But here the transcendental aspect is not emphasized because we are still at the level of trying to Ishvarize this body, mind, sense complex and everything there is therein. So first we look at it as a law. So my hands are totally out of my hands. It's a law. It's no longer, in my power. And in supposing somebody doesn't have a hand, it has to be amputated because of some infection or some problem, accident. That is also part of Sarvatah Panipadam. Every hand and no hand is his hand. And then what? Then comes the prosthetics come into the picture. The bionic hand. Now they have made the bionic hand better than your own hand. It can pick up all kinds of small things. It has a lot of power and everything. And they have made it so that it moves along with your mental suggestions. Very sophisticated. That is also Ishvara's hand. Everything, whatever looks like a hand remotely, belongs to Bhagavan. So I have Ishvarized my hands and my legs. So my karmendriya means what? Organs of action are no longer mine. So how can I be the actor? Very beautiful way. Then what? Then after Ishvarizing the organs of actions, which are easier, because actually hands and legs I can sense, and I can kind of give them over every day as a form of prayer. But then the Jnanendriyas come next. What is Jnanendriyas? Sense organs. The sense organs are also Ishvarized. Sarvataha Akshihi, Akshi, and then Shiras, Mukham. So all the Jnanendriyas, including the Buddhi, including the mind, including the intellect, including the emotions, including the capacity for decisive intellect, including the I notion that owns up the intellect and the emotions as mine, all that is Ishvarized. The whole head doesn't belong to you. All heads, including the head of cabbage, head of cauliflower, Ishvara. No difference. Whatever you call head, Ishvarize. Yeah, no difference. And so, sometimes it's difficult to see the difference actually. Head of cabbage, head, yeah, sometimes it's difficult. And so therefore, wherever there is anything called head, Bhagavan, it is that alone. It is not this individual head which has its crafty plans of how to get ahead in life. Because that's what, based on the base level survival instincts, one can get very crafty. One gets rather crafty. When one starts to plot, you just leave the jiva alone in a room for 5 minutes, you start to have all kinds of little plots. They may not be big plots, they may not be, totally harmful, but very crafty plots. How to get beyond this, and the jiva, when it comes into the spiritual situations, how to get from the guru what I really want. Yeah. So that also is there, that is also part of the plot of the jiva. First you get to know the teacher, and then and after a while, see the way Vedanta teachers, are, generally they're not, they're not sweating the small stuff. So you get to know that part. But I am still sweating the small stuff. But this is what the jiva thinks. So I have to find out how, when. I have seen this with Pujya Swamiji. So Pujya Swamiji will say, yeah, go ahead. Yes, fine. So how to make him say yes is not difficult. But how to present it so that only this yes will come, and when to present it. So then this plot. And where is the plotting taking place? Here, correct? And this is also Ishvarized. So all these plots become possibilities. And I see it as a desperate, means of approval seeking and survival. That's all it is. Then I have little compassion for myself. Then I have compassion for all the other plotting jivas which I did not like before. Then I have compassion for them. Then I have compassion for myself. Then of course I have compassion towards the teacher too. Like, oh, look at what the teacher has to deal with. And so all the heads are Bhagavan. So that means what? I cannot get ahead at all in these matters, because every idea, whenever the light bulb, in the comics, one big incandescent bulb is here above the head, that is Bhagavan. That's not you. That is Bhagavan. Every idea, everything is not you at all. It is Bhagavan. And so, Sarvato Akshi Shiraha Mukham. Mukham here we can take as mouth, because the head includes the face. So the mouth. So this mouth is very interesting, because whatever it ingests, and the mouth also is not just ingests, but it spews out. It spews out fire, fiery speech, Bhagavan. If you have just been singed by somebody else's fiery speech today, Bhagavan. If you have singed somebody by the fiery speech of yourself, Bhagavan. Sarvatokshi Shiromukham. Sarvataha Shrutimat. Shrutimat is anything that is worth hearing, anything that is heard, Bhagavan. Sarvam avritya tishtati. everything it envelops and is present. It's, it has enveloped the whole thing unto itself. So there is no more you, your little ear, your little eye, your hand, your leg, no more. Your head, no. It's all has been Ishvarized. And this Ishvarization is a place of safety because I'm no longer alienated, I'm no longer alone. More we shall see when? Next Tuesday. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Any questions? Yeah, nice to see all of you. Thank you for attending. Perfect timing. Yeah.
It was on time.
Samini, I have a question.
Yeah.
Where in the Sanskrit is it he, she is great?
In this verse,
Yes,
that's what they translated it as.
yes,
Great.
yes.
Are you in?
16?
3:17.
No, we are 16. 16. We are still in 16.
Oh, because the Indriyas, you were talking about the Indriyas.
Yeah, but here also Indriyas come, no? Akshi, Mukham, Shrutimat.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Here also Indriyas are coming. Mouth, head, ear. Yeah. Where does it say great? Friend of all.
3:17, and I'm trying to figure out where it is in the Sanskrit.
But it doesn't, they realize him as the shining by the function of all senses, yet without the senses, as the Lord and ruler of all, the refuge of all, and the friend of all. It doesn't say great in my translation.
In mine, it says, he, she is the refuge of all, he, she is great.
No, that Suhrit is friend. It's not great.
But
It's not a great translation. Yeah, Suhrit means friend.
Okay, thank you.
Vivian is saying thank you.
Yes, Vivian, I'll look into that letter and send it to you. Yeah, I thought that we had already sent, but maybe we haven't. We'll send you that letter soon. Any other questions?